Welcome to Prospecting Purpose, where we explore mining's role in shaping a sustainable, socially just, and brighter future. I'm Liz Friel, your host for the series, with a rotating guest on every episode. Have you noticed all the chatter about the term impact investing lately? Are you confused about what exactly it is? Or maybe you assume it's just another synonym for ESG. Wonder how it differs from other types of investment? And what it's going to mean for the mining industry? Well, that's exactly what we're going to focus on today. Joining me as my co-host for this episode, we have Andrew Cheatle, a seasoned CEO and director in the industry whose 30-plus year international career has encompassed both the major and junior mining sectors. He's also particularly passionate about the mining industry's role in community impact and sustainable development. Welcome, Andrew.
Hi, Liz, and greetings from London, England.
Lovely to have you on the show. So, Andrew, I've got to ask you, what first actually drew you to the mining industry?
I grew up in a household where my parents were adventurers. My father in particular had traveled throughout Africa on an old Triumph motorbike in the 1950s, where we were often out in the mountains, out in the hills. I could read a map, for example, as soon as I could read a book. So when the opportunity came to take geology, which was a new subject at the time, it just was so very natural to combine my love of the outdoors, my love of travel, my curiosity of places, people, culture. And that led me to minings. So that's ultimately where it came from, a great sense of curiosity of the world.
Awesome. So this isn't the first time you've been asked to chat about impact investing. In fact, you wrote a Northern Miner article on this topic, wherein you called out the mutual avoidance between mining and impact investing, even suggesting a state of real mistrust and misunderstanding between the two. What spurred the interest?
There's a fabulous question. Having spent my early part of my career working in Africa, I could really see the impact that mining could have to build local community and to help develop nation. But of course, we come with an industry that does have a legacy, perhaps deserving of the reputation that we've had from some decades past. But I would certainly say that our industry today is absolutely not the industry of even 10, 15, 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you're not alone in developing this interest. I've seen a lot of webinars and articles lately wading into this topic. And I think because ESG pressures are really beginning to affect capital decisions, so naturally, they're really beginning to affect the way business operates as well. But I have the impression that there's still a lot of confusion when we talk specifically about impact investing. So I thought we might start with exploring an overview of the impact investing spectrum. So on the far left, we have traditional investing, purely driven by competitive returns. Then we move towards responsible investment. We see values-based negative screening. Next, taking an integration approach where we actively screen for opportunities to have positive ESG impacts. Then we move into the impact investing realm. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on what the different parts of this spectrum might feel like for our industry, especially as this move from left to right is starting to mainstream. Where do you think most mining investments these days sit on this spectrum?
So a lot of our industry has moved away from the left. You know, when I go to a lot of the conferences and I sit at Investment Forum, there is never a presentation that does not include some component of what the companies are doing in terms of their ESG components or CSR. I think the industry is also very well aware that the license to operate is granted at a local level. And without that license to operate, of course, there's no project. So the investors also want to be investing in projects that are not going to create negative headlines. So there's an alignment at this point between large investment funds, mining executives, and operators on the ground. We also now look at local procurement.
Yeah.
We're also looking at building our relationships between company and community, but also government when we're working internationally, where some individual mines can be tens of percents of a national GDP. So there's very real impacts. So I think we're on the left. I think we've moved away, and we're beginning to understand that middle ground a little bit. If we continue to the right on the chart there, I think the great concern for many mining companies is, please don't make my company an NGO.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
We are here, of course, to make a decent profit. And that applies to everybody, right? Whether it's you and I in our pension funds or people doing day trading, personal portfolios, it can apply everywhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we're mostly on the left. What do you think the sweet spot is? Like, where would you like to see most investment for our industry coming from?
There's very, very few investments that are made just purely on a financial basis only, because the funds themselves are now insisting on ESG standards being applied. So it's very much about risk management in many respects. And I think more and more people are becoming aware. When I talk with a number of other CEOs and operators, there is a growing sense of, hey, it's okay that we can run mining operations and do a lot of good as we do it. IAM Gold would be another good example with their solar panel fields in Burkina Faso. And those solar farms are going to be bequeathed to the nation upon completion of mining. Yet even at this point in time, they're having a massive impact in the reduction of carbon emissions.
Yeah.
This would obviously take us to another conversation in terms of meeting the goals of the SDGs, which now brings us further and further to the right.
Yeah.
And as we do that, we start to, I believe, become more appealing and have access to a totally new set of investors that I'm not aware of any, specifically impact investors I'm referring to, that are specifically investing in mining at this time.
Yeah, I don't think it's a thing yet. But that's exactly what makes it such an interesting conversation. Over the next decade, about $9 trillion is expected to pass to younger generations, millennials and soon Gen Z, that invest way more based on their social and their environmental values. And I think we do need to consider what this means for the mining industry, because most young people are not into mining. They don't see our industry as sustainable, impactful, trustworthy. And I wonder, for the impact investors of tomorrow, will they consider investing in this industry given our legacy issues, the environmental and social incidents that do still crop up, and the ongoing low transparency levels that lead to a lot of distrust from many different parts of the public?
Yeah, again, it's a really salient point. So in my conversations with impact investors, the word transparency keeps on coming up. Ours is an industry that is not well understood. So if we want to build trust, we have to talk with each other. And I would suggest that, as you rightly point out, that investments are more and more looking to the right side of your diagram there. People are becoming more and more aware of the broader social impact of their investments. So we have to also show that we merit and warrant their investment.
Right.
I think we're doing a lot to get there in terms of demonstrating that we have moved long and far away from the legacy that you refer to.
Absolutely. And do you think we're ready for that added layer of scrutiny that's coming down the line?
I think we're getting there, actually. Now, there are some companies that, of course, are financed by such groups as the IFC. And we've talked before, and I've had the privilege of being an IFC client. The impact that can be had locally is really, really exciting. You really can transform and help communities where you are. Let me just give you an example of a small project in the Dominican Republic. Historically, the company had imported several $100,000 of core trays from Canada every year. But we also observed that there were local wood mills. So we worked with some of the local artists and started a core tray making business in the local community.
That's a fantastic story. I love it. I think a lot of companies are not all that focused on these kinds of outcomes. Most of us are still just slapping SDG icons onto our sustainability reports, and we're disclosing inputs and outputs, but not going that next level to really understand impact. And of course, that doesn't mean no good is happening. I've heard you on more than one occasion talk about the good work that so many mining companies are doing. Yeah. But broadly, I feel like we still aren't very good at quantifying our positive contributions, and the impact of our storytelling is limited because of that.
It might sound strange, but I think sometimes people are a little shy and nervous to talk about the positive impacts they're having everywhere. But we must also remember the whole ecosystem around the mine, whether it's obviously money into local suppliers, support of local hospitals, provision of fresh water. But I think we do need to make sure that we are fully and openly telling society and showing society what we do.
I think on the investor side as well, we're also still not very good at measuring impact. Like, we are learning and growing together, and we are searching for this common ground. But one thing I'm noticing is very exciting is that this is changing quickly. We are moving towards that common understanding, that common ground, by both quantifying our impact and standardizing the way we measure it. Whether, again, we're talking about positive or negative impacts, we're merging sustainability performance with financial performance. And I believe that ultimately this is going to redefine success. And so when this change goes mainstream, do you see us having any challenges with this? And what will be the low-hanging fruit?
I don't think there should be any challenges with that. Right? I mean, we already see, for example, the women in mining groups clearly demonstrating that diverse boards, diverse teams perform better. I think also water is an easy low-hanging fruit to make sure that we don't pollute. Also, fair pay and wages. That addresses the alleviation of poverty. And we've talked about carbon emissions.
Yeah. Yeah. You make me think of a couple other really good examples here in Canada. Canada Nickel.
Yeah.
They're doing net zero nickel, right? And Nouveau Monde, the graphite company, same thing. I see companies like that who are building this into their strategy and their project design from such an early stage.
Yeah. We're not talking about trying to destroy profits, trying to enhance profits.
Yeah. So going back to the investment spectrum that we went over earlier, it's really about unleashing the power of capital for good.
Yeah.
What do you think are the biggest challenges for your average mining company to attract that investment?
Well, we have to have conversations like this. We have to talk with people who are impact investors and say, well, what's the gap? And demonstrate that it is a sound investment. And of course, the difficulty again then is, do you invest in a company? Do you invest in a whole industry? Or do you want to get involved in a specific project around a mine?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And that brings me to another question I wanted to ask you. We're talking a lot about impact investing in mining, but what about other possibilities that we could connect the industry to impact investing with by thinking around mining, maybe not directly in the mineral resource development itself, but say, for example, local suppliers. You look at the work of Mining Shared Value and other initiatives like that. We know the value of local procurement if you're talking about really having a sustainable local impact, or partnerships in community investment beyond philanthropy. You look at initiatives like impact catalysts that Anglo is involved in Limpopo, where you bring together a partnership that has a long-term vision, regardless of the life of mine. I wonder if with these kinds of models, we could think about attracting or bringing in impact investing models.
Yeah, impact investors could partner with the mines on commercial ventures which supply the operation, but at the same time, then they're also available to go and develop markets elsewhere at the same time to grow their businesses. In northern Canada, where at the time Placido in the Musselwhite mine, we helped to set up, fund, and partner in the development of Wasaya Airways, the local First Nation communities, helped build an airline that could operate in the northern parts of Ontario very, very successfully. It's a very positive impact, while at the same time going about very, very good business.
That's a great one. And what would you want impact investors to know who've never considered this industry before? What would you want to say to impact investors to maybe persuade them to give this industry a chance?
All right, Liz, what I always like to say is, please take a fresh look at what we are doing these days. Our industry is absolutely not the industry that you imagine from the movies, from the 70s or the 50s or even the 90s. Your mandate as an impact investor is to make real impact on the ground where it matters. And there are a few industries like mining that can do that. So please come and have a look at what we do. Yeah, and one of my favorite personal stories about having impact to the Dominican Republic, where the camp where we were operating, we were located a kilometer outside of a small town right on the Haitian border. And a lot of days' work were being lost to ill health, largely through food hygiene. So we brought in a fabulous chef, but with Pedro came a whole lot of safety and health and how to store food safely, how to prepare it safely, And we saw a dramatic decrease in people missing days' work with upset stomachs, to be direct. But what I particularly liked is that knowledge was going back into their households and going back into their community.
Yeah, I had a very similar experience in one of my first exploration camps in West Africa as well, where as we increased the food, health, and safety standards on site, we started to see improvement in health indicators in the village as well. And when you think about the future of the mining industry and the growing importance of these impact investors, what are you most afraid of and what are you most excited about?
I think there is this growing awareness that we really can make a difference, and that drives a purpose over and above just avarice or making a profit. I think the purpose is literally to make a better humanity, a better world for all of us. On the negative side of things, if we're not careful, we're not going to grasp the importance that the circular economy has and where that is going. Society is changing. Our industry will be facing consumer competition with the recycling industry because it's not just going to be a price competition, it's also going to be an ethical competition.
Yes, absolutely. We have got to stop treating sustainability or ESG as a PR exercise, a box checking exercise. This is about our reason for being. You know, you talk about purpose. You know that this podcast is called Prospecting Purpose. Like, this is something I spend a lot of time thinking about. What is this industry's role in tackling humanity's grand challenges, in crafting a more sustainable future?
Yeah, I'd like to ask you a question.
Oh, okay.
You know, we're clearly from different generations, and how real is it for your generations, and I'm asking you once again to represent the entire millennial generation, Liz.
No big deal.
No. How important is it that companies operate from an ethical or an ESG perspective? How critical is that to you?
For me personally, it's everything, because we hear a lot lately, the world is on fire. The world has been on fire. This is not new. It's just that now it's at a point where we can't not pay attention. But it's everything for me. I would never want to work for a company for whom that wasn't a deeply embedded value. And I think that we are seeing that more and more with the next generation. And so if people think that it's just rhetoric when we talk about the talent crisis coming up, it's not. You're going to have a really hard time getting young people to work for you. You will not get the best talent of tomorrow if you don't find a way to get really authentic in integrating environmental and social criteria in your business model.
Yeah, it's an incredibly good point. Who would want to work for a company that's not operating to the highest ethical standards?
Yes.
And that doesn't apply just to mining, that applies globally. You know, we tend to think of impact investing, purpose as these large programs, but it can be things that occur on a daily basis. We can set up, help set up businesses around our mines. This whole concept operates at all scales, and I don't think we should be afraid of that. I think something we should be embracing.
Thanks. I think that's a great note to end on.
Good, yeah. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
Well, that's all for today's episode. This is Liz Friel on Prospecting Purpose. Thanks for joining us, and thank you so much, Andrew, for being my co-host today.
Absolute pleasure to join you. Thank you so much.
If you want to learn more, check out the show notes for links on all that we covered today. See you next time.